So we've been talking a lot about the King's Fall, Vault of Glass, and Crota's End raids lately, and discussed all the things that make those raids great. But now it's time to talk about another raid, the final raid of Destiny 1. Now, like I said, Wrath of the Machine was the last raid we got in Destiny 1, releasing with the Rise of Iron expansion. And this raid, while it's not my favorite, is definitely the most replayable. Wrath of the Machine had some of the best encounters we've ever seen from Bungie. This raid didn't feel too long like the King's Fall felt at times, or too short like the Crota's End raid. It was right in the sweet spot for a raid's length. Not to mention that the final boss, Aksis, is my #1 all-time best raid boss in Destiny history. So without further ado, guys, let's talk about what made Wrath of the Machine so awesome. Now, right off the bat, the music in the raid is already banging. The raid begins in an open, snowy area just inside or outside or in a destroyed part of the wall or something, and the goal here is to collect voltage and charge up 3 different foundry spinners. Already this raid starts off with a lot of movement and chaos, which continues to be a theme throughout this raid. Once you slam enough voltage, now comes one of my favorite things to do in this raid. Throw Siva bombs at Vosik. Already we're damaging a raid boss in the first encounter before we've even opened the door to the raid. This all made for some high action, excellent gameplay, making the opening to this raid the strongest one yet. Once you finally deal enough damage to him, Vosik retreats and you chase him deeper into the wall where you'll do some platforming and a little bit of falling. Inside the wall is aesthetically incredible, with tanks being strung up by the Fallen to be used for splicing later. Overall, this whole raid with the Siva design is really what makes it stand out and is very unique. 10 out of 10, Bungo. You did a good job. Eventually you make it to Vosik's very small and claustrophobic arena, once again throwing balls to drop Vosik's shield. Early on, I can't tell you guys how many times these douchebags f***ed up one of my shots on Vosik.
No, my legacy! No!
This is also where I heard people yelling TV or monitor more than I cared to.
TV, 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 TV. Sports TV, TV, TV. TV, TV, MTV, TV, 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 TV.
After a decent damage phase on Vosik, he opens up his clean rooms, which basically means you need to run in and slam the door behind you as he blasts the arena. And maybe one of your buddies gets left in the dust because he was too slow. Vosik ends up being a fairly easy boss overall, but truthfully, a pretty good one. Just about the only thing that can mess you up is these blinking Siva captains, and of course...
No!
So far, Wrath of the Machine has been pretty solid, if not a tiny bit easy in my opinion. But now it was on to the most unique raid encounter we've ever got. This encounter is what really set Wrath of the Machine apart from every other raid in Destiny. No other raid has something so outlandish as the Siege Engine. If you've played it, then you know that basically you need to escape, destroy, and repair this giant mech that's looking to mow you down like you're his front lawn. The chaos in this encounter has been ramped up so heavily that most of the time you were getting about 6 frames per second on a good day. But in all seriousness though, this was a very intense fight that needs players to focus on slaying adds as fast as possible while lugging massive machine parts slowly in hopes to repair it. And standing atop the engine, slamming through walls has got to be one of the most badass things we've ever done in Destiny. And that massive jump at the end of the wall, watching the Death Zamboni fall, is just epic. The only option was to delve deeper into the Siva Den, making your way down a pit, through Randall, the now Siva Vandal's maze, past a massive f***ing Siva cube, and you finally made it to a door. A door that led to another incredible area. This massive room of squares that lit up was the biggest troll. My team and I were convinced that it meant something and spent too much time trying to figure it out. Honestly though, at this point, I'm not totally convinced it's nothing. I mean, there's gotta be something there. Why would they line up like that? And now we're at phase 1 of the final boss, Aksis. Aksis phase 1 had us throwing more Siva clusters, but also manning specific elemental cannons. These cannons were dropped after killing a major captain and were needed to kill the servitors that contained Siva clusters inside them. Players had to coordinate and work together to call out locations and element types of servitors and drop them quick enough with the correct cannon before they arrived at a Siva plate that would ensure a wipe. Once a servitor was down, someone who was not using the cannon had to pick them up and throw them at various Siva containment cores around the arena. There were 3 waves to this encounter, with each successive wave requiring more Siva cores to be hit, meaning more servitors killed and more room for error. This mechanic served very well as an introduction to the cannons and the Siva clusters mechanics that would be more imperative to the Aksis Phase 2 fight. In Aksis Phase 2, oh my goodness, the Aksis fight is perfect. Literally perfect. Get ready for the next few minutes because I'm going to just be talking up this boss fight. Now Aksis drops down onto a pair of mechanical Siva spider legs, showcasing right away that Aksis's design is badass and pretty menacing. Now I want to break down everything that happens in this fight, then talk about why it really is one of the best boss fights in video game history. Aksis wields a Siva cannon that sends clusters of Siva that eat away at you and deal big damage. He then teleports all around the room while your team must slay 3 Siva captains and pick up their cannons. It's here that you begin running essentially Aksis Phase 1 again, but this time you will be throwing the Siva bombs at Aksis himself. During all of this, Aksis sends out an empowered buff to 3 members of your fire team. When you have this buff, you are responsible for making sure you slam Aksis when he teleports to one of 4 possible locations. This means you need to spread out your empowered players to have all the bases covered before Aksis teleports. Aksis will teleport 3 different times during DPS, and when he does, he will change who is empowered, forcing your team to once again coordinate locations for the next teleport. Then a final teleport leaves him vulnerable for a few seconds longer, where you do a majority of your DPS. You will have to repeat this as many times as it takes to defeat him, so maximizing your damage is obviously key. Whew. Now, that is the basis for the encounter, and a lot happens in this fight. It's intense, random, and communication needs to be huge here. And this is just normal mode. Hard mode ramps it up with a few tweaks to the mechanics, and Aksis challenge mode requires absolutely precise, perfect execution and perfect communication to pull off. In challenge mode, not only do you need to slam Aksis with an empowered player, but a second one must be positioned near one of 3 plates to slam that exact moment that the other player slams Aksis. The coordination can only be pulled off by very excellent teams. And that's why I believe this fight is seriously the best we've ever had. The level of coordination and communication is greatly emphasized, but not to an extreme like the Riven fight. The chaos and randomness adds to a lot of movement, but can be tamed by smart players. And most importantly, the fight is extremely fun to run. Even after we failed damage phases, I never dreaded having to replay the fight just because I loved running the mechanics over and over. Truly an addictive, hectic, creative, and enjoyable boss fight that stands out as one of the greatest video game bosses of all time. Now, if you were skilled enough to beat this raid, your loot haul coming out of this was probably pretty decent as well. At this point in Destiny 1, raid loot wasn't as rare as it was in the Vault of Glass or anything like that, so most people got at least something. But if I'm being totally honest, the raid loot was a bit lacking here. The armor was pretty cool and had a few neat perks, but most of the weapons were very underwhelming. Quantoplasm, Aethernova, Zeal Vector were easily all outclassed in both PvE and PvP by almost every other weapon in their class. Fever and Remedy, Still Medola, If Materia, Sound and Fury, all pretty bad in most scenarios. But there were a few standout weapons that were pretty good, like the Ex Machina Sniper that was pretty good for DPS, the Genesis Chain, and the Chaos Dogma were also some of the best primary weapons in their class, with unique perks like Firefly for an auto rifle and a modified version of Triple Tap for the Scout Rifle. But the weapon from this raid that everybody wanted, so badly in fact that people were willing to learn binary just to solve the complex puzzle to start the quest, was Outbreak Prime.
I know you want it.
Yes.
Oh!
Yes.
It's opening!
Yep. Is it?
It's open! It's open!
Once again, Bungie has proved themselves as some incredibly talented and creative developers by designing this complex puzzle. Never has a puzzle or quest been so complex in a video game that you literally need to learn binary to complete it. This quest had people all over Reddit and discussion forums, videos being posted, everything. So many people were working together on this puzzle all across the internet. And it wasn't just binary. Other number-related puzzles were thrown at the players that took all kinds of time and math to figure out. Ultimately though, after many hours, Datto and his team were the first in the world to work through this puzzle and acquire the Outbreak Prime. And after many years, they still deserve a massive congrats, because going back through all the footage for the sake of this video, I forgot just how much work this thing actually took to get, so props to those guys. Wrath of the Machine is a standout raid that starts off very strong and continues to have great pacing throughout, ending with one hell of a final boss fight. But let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy Wrath of the Machine as much as I did? Which part of the raid was your favorite? That's all I have for now, but thanks for watching the video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Destiny and video game content like this, and I will see you all later.